Hi, this is Nick from Brookway Investments and welcome to another beautiful Southern California day. Every now and again a car comes along that captivates the imagination of the public, both young and old. In the mid-1960s, Ford managed to pull this off with Lee Iacocca's iconic Ford Mustang design. General Motors' answer to the Ford Mustang's success was the F-body platform 2+2 Coupe, which was presented as the Pontiac Firebird and Chevrolet Camaro. General Motors pulled off what I think was a masterstroke, which was to produce a high-end Firebird, give it the name Trans Am, and give it lots of performance goodies and dress it in such a way that it appeared as a road-going race car. Trans Am, of course, was the American Trans Am series of road and track events where production cars would be slightly modified and uprated and would be raced competitively. So General Motors came up with this idea: let's give a Pontiac Firebird the Trans Am name, let's uprate the performance, and let's come up with a sexy road-going looking race car. And here we have today a 1979 model of a Pontiac Trans Am. Now 1979 was the biggest selling year for the Trans Am, selling over 200,000 units, and this car I think is an iconic car. Not only do I think this is an iconic car, but these cars now are reaching cult status, just like the Ford Mustang has done, to the point where some of the major restoration and parts suppliers now produce a catalogue and an inventory of parts where you can almost build one of these cars from scratch with new parts off the shelf. Such is the cult status of the Pontiac Trans Am. Okay, so where does it start? First of all, let's pan around this car and let's take in the styling. And I think this car, I think you'll agree, although it may frighten you at first with its outrageous and in-your-face looks, this is a work of art. Let's take a look. Okay, just looking around the car, what does this car tell you? First of all, on the bonnet of the car, we've got this fire-breathing eagle. This is not just a Firebird, this is a fire-breathing Firebird. This is the Trans Am version. And what else have we got? We've got a great big air intake, christened the Shaker hood, right plumb in the centre of the bonnet. What does it tell you? Trans Am 6.6. Now 6.6 is not really a terminology which was used so much in the United States, but as you probably know, I'm a Brit, I'm from the UK. When these cars started to drift across to Europe and the United Kingdom in the mid to late 1970s, when people saw this 6.6 litre, it represented something like a fighter jet for the road. It was an incredible size of engine. This is a sports looking car, this is a muscle looking car with a 6.6 litre engine. In the UK we were used to cars with engine displacements of around about 1.5 litres, 2 litre if you had a performance car, maybe a Ford Capri, a Ford Escort, which was souped up, which you could do track and road going race events. But 6.6 litre, when you saw one of these cars in Europe or the United Kingdom in the late 70s, it just blew you away in terms of capacity and styling. We've got air intakes here, we've got great big 15-inch alloy wheels, we've got a beautiful fastback looking styling, we've got flares in front of the wheel arches to give it that aerodynamic look. We've got quadruple exhaust pipes, to either side. Look at the back end of the car, it's a fastback styling with a spoiler on the back. Trans Am, it tells you what it is, the lights are blacked out. I mean, what a fantastic style this car is. This just tells you, I'm a muscle car, I've got power, I'm a fire-breathing V8 performance car. I think General Motors pulled off an absolute masterstroke with this car. But it's not just a sports car with in-your-face looks that would get you noticed. The car sounds awesome. Obviously, big V8 power, quadruple exhaust pipes, but the specification on the car is fantastic. It is also, to a certain degree, a usable family car. We've got 2 super comfortable seats in the front, we've got 2 smaller seats in the back, which will take an adult. We've got creature comforts of power brakes, power steering, air conditioning, tilt steering, great stereo, power windows, power seat. I mean, what a fantastic specification. A lot of European sports cars of the time were cut to the bone. Comfort was not really a consideration, it was all about looks. This car has looks to die for, and it's so usable and comfortable as well. So if we just talk about the mechanical specification a little bit, this for me is probably the last of the real Trans Ams. And why do I say that? Not only was it the biggest selling year for Trans Am, it was the very last year of the big V8s for one of these cars. Now this particular example was constructed in Van Nuys in Southern California in the San Fernando Valley. So the car was manufactured in California and it's never left California. It spent the majority of its life in the beautifully desert dry climate of Palm Springs, so this car is fabulously preserved. This is how this car would have left the factory in terms of specification, colour and design. It's not modified, it's not changed. So the styling, we've got the picture there. Mechanically, we've got this big 403 cubic inch V8 engine. It's a cast iron pushrod engine. It was actually manufactured by Oldsmobile, so it had good compression and there was a lot of modifiability within that engine. You could easily push the quoted circa 200 brake horsepower up to 400 with some minor tweaks, a high lift camshaft, etc. But in its standard guise, round about 200 brake horsepower. But we also had a high ratio steering box, so not a lot of effort to turn this car from lock to lock on the steering, so the car had a race car feel about it. We've got a turbo 400 hydromatic transmission in here. Yet again, a high ratio transmission built to handle a lot of power. We've got a very taut radial tuned suspension, big torsion bars on this car, which means it'll go around corners without the traditional American rock and roll bouncing around. So this car would actually handle and perform. We've got disc brakes on this car, and in the rear end we've got a high ratio limited slip differential, or a positraction as the Americans like to call it. So we've actually got a car here that is capable of performance. It doesn't just look the business, it doesn't just look like a Trans-American Road Race Series car, it does have serious capabilities as well. Of course, you could buy a standard Firebird with the similar looks, but without the additions of the spoilers and the eagle on the bonnet and the shaker in the middle and the vents, with a more tame engine and mechanical specification. But this is the top of the range, high-end Trans Am model. Okay, I think we'll just pop the hood and we'll take a look underneath and we can talk a little bit about the detail on the car. I like this car because it's unmodified and it's as it would have been when it left the factory. Power brakes we've got here. We've got the big shaker air intake on the top. We've got the original air conditioning unit belted up. And because this is a California supplied car in 1979, yes, it's the very last year of the big 4.3 engine, but we've got a smog pump added here for California emissions regulations, and we've got dual catalytic converters on this car as well. So California, way ahead of the game in terms of saving the planet, in terms of reducing vehicle emissions. And this car is correct specification. We've got cruise control on here as well, which is a great option for a Trans Am. So this is kind of a luxury high performance 2+2 coupe of its day. Great looks, but great comfort. Lovely car to drive, lovely car to use. Super original. So you can see we've got a very dry engine here, we've got no surface rust on the car, we've got no oil leaks on this particular example. Very, very tight, unmolested motor car. 30,000 miles from new this car is done, and it really does speak volumes. The traditional areas of corrosion that we see in one of these cars, in the front of the bonnet along here, the metal is all fabulous. The panels are straight, the nose cone's great. I love this 1979 front. It was the first year of the tunnel light look, where they had the two individual tunnels. They gave it a more pointed front. Great looking car, and I see that National Parts Depot on their catalogue, one of the catalogues I was talking about earlier, where you can buy everything for these cars. They used a 79 model Trans Am to advertise their products and services, which I think, this is the look. This is the last year of the big engine Trans Am. This is the one to have. Okay, if we look inside the car, great big long doors. I mean, what a style this car's got. And we've got a really plush interior here. Central locking, power windows, center console. And to give it that race car feeling, if we look at the steering wheel and the dashboard, We've got a metal turn dash. We've got a tachometer or rev counter, speedometer there, and we've got gauges. We've got gauges telling you what's going on here. We've got an ammeter, we've got a temperature gauge, we've got an oil pressure gauge, and we've got water temperature. So to sit in this car with the high back bucket seats, the small sports steering wheel, the metal turn dash, tells you on the dash we've got this radial tune suspension. You feel like you're sat in a road going race car. A really superb marketing job by General Motors, and just a great stylish practical car to use. So who would buy a Pontiac Trans Am from the late 70s? Well, when this car came out, I was 10 years old, and I remember the first time I saw one of these cars, it just blew me away. And I was no stranger to luxury and classic cars, Jaguars, Jensens, Rolls, Bentley. I grew up with these cars, but this car, the style of this car, the whole image of this car just blew me away. And still to this day, when I see one of these, I think, wow, what a car. And we have to see this car in the context of the late 1970s. What a machine. And now, as I say, these cars are developing an iconic and cult status. And just to prove a point on that, I'm not the only person in Southern California who owns a 79 Gold Trans Am. Somebody who I've got a massive amount of respect for, ex-Formula One world champion Jensen Button, also lives in Southern California now. He owns a gold late 70s, I think his is actually a 1980 model, Pontiac Trans Am. Same look as this car, same wheels, eagle on the bonnet. Jensen's is building a great car collection. He has great taste for iconic road-going classic cars. So, as I say, these cars now, cult status. They will never make cars like this again. Not in terms of engine displacement. As we move more and more towards the battery and electric age, these cars are now a thing of the past. They'll never be built again. This really is a piece of history. This particular car is a beautifully well-preserved piece of history. 100% rust-free. If we look around the areas of the rear screen and the wheel arches and the rear quarters, 100% rust-free, straight panelled car. This is about as preserved as you will ever find one of these. Of course, the late 1970s, manufacturers were using more and more plastic in the construction of their cars. That, unfortunately, didn't really stand the test of time as well as what the earlier cars did from the 50s and 60s. So 70s cars have a reputation of being a little bit on the brittle side in terms of longevity and durability, but this is a super preserved example. Just look at that. Okay, I think we'll fire the car up and you can hear it running. I think the keys are inside. We'll just fire it up and show you the car running. All right. Okay, I don't know if you can hear the engine from the microphone, but this is a throaty sounding car. We'll just take a little walk around. See if we can pick up the noise of the tailpipes here. I mean, this is a muscle sounding car. Just listen to that. Gorgeous note from the quadruple tailpipes there. We'll pop the hood again and you can just see the car running with the hood up. Sits nice, lovely and smooth. We've got no oil leaks on this engine. We've got no back pressure or blow-by. We've got the shaker hood there doing what it says on the tin, shaking around there. It's telling you I'm a muscle car. And this is what we like to see. Air conditioning all there, belted up, doing its thing. Okay, we'll just close this down now. Maybe you can hand it out a little bit. We've got a serious gust of wind. Yeah. Okay, so super easy car to drive. As most American cars of the period, it's automatic, it's full power. Just get in, point it in the right direction, and off you go. Here we go. Absolutely effortless fingertip driving. Okay, so there we go. One fabulous 1979 Pontiac Trans Am, the likes of which will never be seen again in terms of vehicle production. An iconic 1970s muscle car. Fit for any collection. What a beauty. I'm enjoying owning this car.